The Irishman was directed by the king of mob movies himself, Martin Scorsese. But don't be fooled. This is unlike any other gangster movie he's ever made. There's this tangible sense of power and this sense of excitement and fun that comes with this power in his other gangster movies, especially good. This film takes a much different look at the life of a gangster. This time it's not so much about the glorification, but about reflection. This film was clearly made by an older Scorsese, a more reflective one who has learned much about his journey in life and is reaching closer to the end. This movie centers its focus more so on the aftermath of living a gangster life, and the whole movie is a lead up to this reflection. But more on that later. This cast is just such a joy to watch. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are of course amazing, and it was such a treat to have Joe Pesci back in a movie. Then there's the smaller roles. There's Ray Romano, there's Bobby Cannavale, Jesse Plemons, Harvey Keitel. They all fit like puzzle pieces into this movie. Martin Scorsese has mastered the art of casting. And you can tell that all these actors are just grateful to be a part of this movie. They're just relishing every minute of screen time they get. And I've seen some minor complaints online pointing out that Al Pacino was overacting. And he does seem to steal every scene he's in, but that's not a bad thing. Yes, he's loud, but he does have his quieter, more subtle moments. He totally owns this role of Jimmy Hoffa and makes his power and influence felt to the audience. And throughout the entirety of this movie, these characters exchange such great, funny dialogue that I didn't want to miss a single line because it was so entertaining. And real quick, I gotta mention the production design of this film. Martin Scorsese has again mastered just taking audiences back to a certain period of time with his production designs. This one may not wow audiences as much as maybe something like Gangs of New York did, but there's still plenty of work that went into it, and it just seeps into the background, which is what it should do. So as most of you probably know, Scorsese implemented the de-aging and up-aging technology that Marvel has used in some of their recent movies such as Civil War, Captain Marvel, and Endgame, and it's implemented virtually seamlessly into this film. Marvel has mostly used this in smaller doses, with the exception of Captain Marvel, of which the entire movie took place in the past, but this film utilizes it in a completely different fashion. This film is non-linear and jumps to different parts of the timeline, and the audiences can tell which part they're in due to how old the actors look. It's quite incredible. I've never seen a movie quite like it, actually. It's an amazing use of this technology to further a story, and it's the best I've ever seen, actually. So as I said, the story is non-linear, and the editing work used to make this non-linear was incredible. At certain points in the story, if one point was slowing down, another point would pick right up. It would just flow so well. The editing in this movie is fantastic. It's one of the best points of the film. But even without that editing, underneath is such a great story already. It not only grips the audience from start to finish, but it's a nice peek into some history of America. This was based on a true story, and I learned some history I'd never heard of. So at the very least, the audience can leave this movie with some added knowledge of the past. And then we finally arrive at that ending I had mentioned earlier. And I'm not going to say anything specific to avoid spoilers. Other than that, it is a slow burn, and it's not something that you would expect out of a gangster film. This ending, the last 20-30 minutes, gave so much added meaning to the entire film. It turned the film into a story about the reflection of life, about regrets or lack thereof, and the passage of time. It added so many amazing themes I didn't expect. And even though, like I said, it is a slow burn, it's maybe the best part of the movie. Okay, so there were only a couple problems I had. So the pacing, I would say, is 90% on point. There was just one section of the movie that kind of dragged. It was closer to the end, and there was this one part that just kept getting very repetitive to me, and it was can we move on? And I think maybe about 20 minutes could have been cut, but it certainly earned 3 of its 3.5 hours of runtime. Like I said, for the most part, it didn't drag at all, and it did not feel like a 3.5 hour movie. The pacing was pretty much amazing. The other issue I had was that even though the CGI aging technology was almost perfect, you could still guess what the true age of the actors were underneath based on their movements. They may look like they're 40 years old, but based on their slow movements, you could kind of tell they had to be at least 70. But other than those two things, this movie was just amazing. Such a delight to watch. A lot of unexpected themes came about, and man, I was here for it. I'm gonna give The Irishman a solid 9.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys thought of The Irishman in the comments below. And please make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you for my next review.